Most people think love announces itself loudly, with words, chasing, and constant attention, but the truth is far more unsettling. When a man is already in love, he often does not move closer the way you expect. He becomes quieter, more controlled, more careful. And if you do not understand this language, you will mistake love for distance and miss what is already there. Love often reveals itself through unconscious behavior long before it ever appears in words, because the unconscious mind moves faster and more honestly than the conscious ego. Before a man can name his feelings, justify them, or decide whether they are safe to express, his psyche has already begun to act. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious constantly communicates through symbols, habits, reactions, and emotional patterns, and love is one of the strongest forces that activates this hidden language. When a man begins to feel something deep, his body, attention, and behavior respond automatically, even while his conscious mind is still confused, resistant, or in denial. This is why actions change before confessions do. A man may not say he cares, but his energy shifts. He becomes more attentive without realizing it. His focus naturally gravitates toward one person, even when he tries to stay neutral or detached. This is not a strategy, it is instinct. The unconscious recognizes emotional significance before logic can interfere. Jung described this as the psyche moving toward individuation, where meaningful connections pull us closer to parts of ourselves we have not yet integrated. Love triggers this process because it exposes vulnerability, longing, and emotional truth. Unconscious behavior often shows up in small, unplanned moments. He might remember details he did not intend to remember. He may react emotionally to your absence more than he expected. He might feel unsettled when you are distant, even if he cannot explain why. These reactions happen because the unconscious has already assigned importance. You are no longer just another person in his external world. You have become an inner presence. At this stage, words feel premature because the feeling has not yet been organized into a clear narrative the ego can control. Another reason unconscious behavior appears first is fear. Love threatens emotional safety, especially for someone who values control or independence. The conscious mind often resists love because it introduces uncertainty and risk. So instead of expressing feelings directly, the psyche releases them sideways through behavior. He might become protective without labeling it. He might show concern disguised as practicality. He might offer help under the excuse of logic rather than emotion. These are defenses, not deceptions. The unconscious is trying to express connection while the ego tries to stay guarded. Jung also emphasized projection, which plays a major role here. When a man begins to fall in love, he often projects inner qualities onto the other person. She becomes a symbol of meaning, comfort, inspiration, or emotional wholeness. Because this process happens below awareness, he may feel drawn, affected, or changed without understanding the source. His behavior adapts to maintain proximity to what now feels psychologically important. He may adjust his routines, priorities, or emotional availability without consciously deciding to do so. This is why inconsistency in words does not always match consistency in actions. A man might say he is unsure, confused, or not ready, yet his behavior continues to orbit around you. The unconscious does not negotiate. It moves toward what feels emotionally true. Jung believed that what we repress does not disappear. It returns through behavior, repetition, and emotional tension. Love that is not acknowledged will still express itself, often more powerfully because it lacks conscious direction. Understanding this prevents misinterpretation. Many people look only for verbal affirmation, but the psyche speaks first through action. Tone, timing, presence, and emotional responsiveness reveal more than declarations ever could. When you observe unconscious behavior, you are witnessing truth before it has been filtered, edited, or restrained by fear or social conditioning. This is why early signs of love are often quiet, subtle, and easy to dismiss, yet deeply consistent and emotionally charged. A man in love may withdraw, not because his feelings are weak, but because they are intense enough to disrupt his inner balance. When emotion reaches a depth that challenges identity, the psyche often responds by pulling inward. Carl Jung viewed this inward movement as a natural reaction when the ego encounters something it cannot immediately integrate. Love, especially when unexpected or profound, can feel like a threat to the structures a man has relied on to understand himself. Instead of moving forward impulsively, he pauses, creating distance not from you, but from the overwhelming nature of what he feels. This withdrawal is often misunderstood as disinterest or emotional unavailability, yet psychologically, it is closer to self-regulation. Strong emotion activates vulnerability, and vulnerability exposes unresolved fears, past disappointments, and emotional wounds that may have been buried for years. The unconscious brings these elements to the surface all at once, creating internal tension. To manage this, the ego seeks space. Silence and distance become tools for processing rather than rejection. He is not turning away from love. He is trying to understand what it is asking of him. When a man withdraws in this way, his attention does not disappear. It simply becomes internalized. Instead of expressing desire outwardly, he reflects, analyzes, and questions himself. He may replay interactions, examine his reactions, and try to make sense of why one person has affected him so deeply. Jung described this as a confrontation with the shadow, the parts of the self that are hidden, avoided, or denied. Love forces this confrontation because it exposes emotional needs that conflict with pride, control, or independence. Withdrawal can also occur because love challenges a man's sense of autonomy. Many men are conditioned to equate strength with self-sufficiency. Falling in love introduces dependence, emotional openness, and the possibility of loss. These experiences can feel destabilizing. Rather than surrender immediately, the psyche resists by creating emotional distance. This does not mean the connection is fading. In many cases, it is deepening beneath the surface. The more significant the feeling, the more carefully he treats it. You may notice that during this period, his behavior becomes quieter but more intentional. He speaks less, yet listens more. He initiates less, yet responds with depth when interaction occurs. This is because his emotional energy is concentrated rather than scattered. Jung believed that introversion of feeling leads to intensity, not absence. The feeling is alive, but it is being held internally until it can be safely expressed or understood. Another reason withdrawal appears is fear of making the wrong move. Love raises the stakes of every action. What once felt casual now feels meaningful. He becomes cautious with words, timing, and decisions because he senses that mistakes could have lasting consequences. Silence becomes a form of protection, both for himself and for the connection. He may believe that waiting is safer than risking premature expression. This inward retreat is often temporary, though its duration depends on emotional maturity and self-awareness. Once the psyche begins to integrate the feeling, withdrawal often gives way to clarity. When he re-emerges, his actions tend to be more grounded and sincere. He is no longer reacting to emotion. He is choosing how to engage with it. Jung emphasized that psychological growth requires periods of withdrawal, where inner reorganization takes place before outward change becomes possible. Understanding this pattern helps prevent misinterpretation. Absence does not always signal loss of interest. In the context of deep emotion, it can signal significance. When a man withdraws while remaining emotionally attuned, responsive, and affected, it suggests that the feeling has reached a level that demands internal adjustment. Love that is shallow rushes forward without thought. Love that is deep often pauses. because the psyche recognizes that something important is unfolding and deserves careful integration. Silence can be a psychological language, especially when emotion conflicts with ego and control. When a man feels something deeply but has not yet found a way to reconcile that feeling with his self-image, silence often becomes the safest form of expression. Carl Jung believed that the psyche communicates through symbols and indirect signals long before it allows direct articulation. Silence, in this sense, is not emptiness. It is a container. It holds emotion that is too complex, too vulnerable, or too destabilizing to be spoken aloud. When love challenges a man's sense of control, words can feel dangerous. Speaking requires commitment, and commitment requires clarity. Yet deep emotion rarely arrives in a clear, organized form. It comes layered with fear, desire, memory, and uncertainty. The ego, which prefers order and predictability, struggles to manage this complexity. Silence becomes a way to pause the external world while the inner world tries to catch up. This is not avoidance for the sake of avoidance. It is psychological self-preservation. In Jungian terms, silence often appears when feeling is introverted. Some individuals experience emotion intensely but express it sparingly. Their inner life is rich, yet their outer expression is minimal. For such a man, silence does not mean lack of feeling. It often means the opposite. The more significant the emotion, the more carefully it is guarded. Love amplifies this tendency because it exposes vulnerability. To speak is to risk being seen, and being seen threatens the defenses that have kept him emotionally safe. Silence also emerges when the ego senses that words might distort the truth. There is an intuitive awareness that premature expression can cheapen or misrepresent what is actually felt. Love that has not yet settled into understanding resists labels. He may feel that saying anything definitive would trap the emotion into a form it is not ready to take. So he waits. He observes his own reactions, monitors his impulses, and allows the feeling to mature internally before giving it language. Another layer of silence comes from internal conflict. A man may feel drawn toward someone while simultaneously fearing what that connection demands. This creates tension between desire and restraint. Speaking would force a decision, and the psyche is not ready to choose. Silence allows both forces to coexist without immediate resolution. Jung described this as holding the tension of opposites, a necessary stage for psychological growth. Rather than acting impulsively, the individual endures uncertainty until a deeper truth emerges. It is also important to recognize that silence can be relational rather than individual. When a man senses emotional depth with someone, he may instinctively slow down communication to protect the bond. He becomes aware that careless words could disrupt something fragile and meaningful. Silence, in this case, is not withdrawal from connection, but a form of reverence for it. He treats the connection as something that should not be rushed or handled lightly. From the outside, this silence can feel confusing or even painful. Modern culture often equates communication with interest and silence with indifference. Jungian psychology challenges this assumption by emphasizing inner experience over external performance. A man may be quiet precisely because he is emotionally engaged. His silence carries attention, awareness, and emotional presence, even if it lacks verbal reassurance. Silence becomes problematic only when it is accompanied by emotional coldness, inconsistency, or lack of responsiveness. But when silence exists alongside subtle care, steady attention, and emotional attunement, it often signals depth rather than distance. The psyche chooses silence when words are insufficient, when emotion is still organizing itself, and when the truth is being shaped internally before it can be safely revealed outwardly. Projection plays a powerful role in love because the unconscious often recognizes emotional meaning before the conscious mind does. When a man begins to fall in love, he is not only responding to the other person as they are in reality, but also to what they awaken within him. Carl Jung described projection as the process by which inner qualities, desires, and unmet needs are unconsciously placed onto another person. This does not mean the connection is false, it means the connection is psychologically charged. The other person becomes a mirror through which the inner world is suddenly visible. In this stage, a man may feel drawn without fully understanding why. He senses comfort, inspiration, familiarity, or emotional intensity that seems disproportionate to the amount of time spent together. This happens because the psyche has attached symbolic meaning to the connection. You may represent emotional safety he has lacked, creativity he has suppressed, or vulnerability he has avoided. The unconscious uses projection to bring these disowned or undeveloped aspects of the self into awareness. Love becomes the doorway through which inner growth is invited. Because projection operates below conscious awareness, his reactions may seem inconsistent or confusing. He may idealize you in subtle ways, seeing depth, wisdom, or significance that others do not immediately notice. At the same time, he may feel unsettled or emotionally exposed in your presence. This inner contradiction arises because projection intensifies emotion. You are no longer experienced as neutral. You carry psychological weight. He feels more himself around you, yet also more vulnerable, because parts of his inner world are now activated. This is why love often feels transformative even before a relationship is clearly defined. His priorities may begin to shift. His emotional responses deepen. Situations that once felt manageable suddenly feel meaningful. Jung believed that projection is an early stage of individuation, where the psyche uses relationships to recover lost or undeveloped parts of the self. The attraction is not random. It is purposeful on a psychological level, guiding him toward integration. As projection deepens, behavior changes. He becomes more attentive, more emotionally responsive, even when he tries to remain detached. His actions reflect an unconscious commitment to maintaining proximity to what now feels essential. He may protect the connection instinctively, avoiding behaviors that could threaten it. This is not calculated. It is the psyche responding to perceived emotional value. However, projection also creates fear. When someone carries symbolic meaning, losing them feels like losing a part of oneself. This fear can make a man cautious, hesitant, or emotionally guarded. He may pull back at moments of closeness because the intensity feels overwhelming. Jung emphasized that projection must eventually be withdrawn for a relationship to become grounded and real, but before that happens, it exerts a powerful emotional pull that shapes behavior in quiet but consistent ways. It is important to understand that projection does not invalidate genuine affection. Instead, it explains why early love feels charged with emotion and significance. Over time, as projection fades, what remains is either authentic connection or disillusionment. But in the beginning, projection is what ignites interest, depth, and emotional focus. A man in this phase may not articulate his feelings clearly, but his behavior reveals attachment. He is drawn not only to you, but to the parts of himself he encounters through you. Recognizing projection helps interpret his actions with clarity. His attentiveness, sensitivity, and emotional shifts are signs that the connection has moved beyond the superficial. You are no longer just someone he interacts with. You are someone through whom his inner world is being explored, questioned, and slowly integrated. Fear of vulnerability can make love appear as restraint rather than pursuit, because opening the heart threatens the defenses a man has spent years building. When a man begins to feel deeply, the instinct to protect himself often activates before the instinct to express love. Carl Jung believed that the ego's primary role is to maintain stability, and vulnerability destabilizes the ego by exposing emotional dependence, uncertainty, and the possibility of loss. Instead of moving closer in obvious ways, a man may slow down, hold back, or appear controlled, not because he feels less, but because he feels too much. Vulnerability requires surrendering the illusion of control. Love introduces the reality that another person can affect one's emotional state, sense of worth, and inner peace. For many men, especially those who value strength, autonomy, or emotional self-sufficiency, this realization is unsettling. The unconscious recognizes love as a force that cannot be managed through logic alone. As a result, restraint becomes a psychological compromise. He allows himself to feel but limits how much he reveals. He stays present, yet guarded. This creates the appearance of distance, even while emotional attachment is growing internally. Restraint often shows up in how carefully he chooses his actions. He may avoid impulsive gestures or dramatic expressions, opting instead for consistency and reliability. Jung would interpret this as the ego attempting to integrate emotion without being overwhelmed by it. Love is powerful, and power demands respect. A man who restrains himself may be trying to ensure that his feelings do not lead him into choices he is not ready to make consciously. This caution is not indifference. It is responsibility towards something that feels meaningful. Another layer of restraint comes from past emotional experiences. If a man has been hurt, rejected, or emotionally exposed before, love can trigger old memories stored in the unconscious. These memories resurface as caution rather than fear he can easily name. The psyche remembers pain, even when the mind believes it has moved on. Love threatens to reopen those wounds, so restraint acts as a protective boundary. He may delay closeness, test emotional safety, or observe your reactions before allowing himself to step forward. Restraint also reflects respect. When a man values a connection, he becomes more aware of its fragility. He senses that careless words or rushed actions could damage something important. Instead of pursuing aggressively, he waits. He gives space. He allows the bond to develop organically. Jung emphasized that psychological maturity involves patience with inner processes. Love that is restrained is often love that is being treated with seriousness rather than urgency. From the outside, restraint can be misread as lack of interest, especially in cultures that associate desire with overt pursuit. Yet desire expressed without restraint is often driven by impulse rather than depth. When love is present, restraint becomes a sign of emotional investment. He is thinking beyond the moment. He is considering consequences, impact, and long-term meaning. This level of consideration rarely appears in casual attraction. Internally, restraint creates tension. The feeling wants expression, but the ego wants safety. This tension is uncomfortable, but it is also productive. Jung believed that holding inner tension allows transformation to occur. Through restraint, a man gradually learns how to balance vulnerability with self-respect. When he finally acts, his actions tend to be more deliberate, sincere, and grounded. Understanding restraint as a sign of love changes how it is interpreted. It shifts the focus from what is missing to what is being protected. A man who restrains himself emotionally is often signaling that the connection matters enough to be handled carefully, slowly, and with intention. Consistency of subtle actions matters more than dramatic gestures because the unconscious expresses truth through repetition, not performance. Carl Jung emphasized that the psyche reveals itself in patterns over time, not in isolated moments of intensity. Anyone can perform a grand gesture driven by impulse, desire, or ego, but only genuine feeling sustains quiet, reliable behavior without the need for recognition. When a man is truly in love, his actions align unconsciously and repeatedly with the emotional importance he feels, even when he is not trying to impress or persuade. Subtle consistency shows up in how he remains present across ordinary moments. He checks in without needing a reason. He responds with steadiness rather than urgency. He makes room for you in his routine without announcing it. These behaviors are not fueled by excitement alone. They are guided by emotional prioritization. The unconscious reorganizes life around what it values, and this reorganization happens quietly. Love, when real, does not need to prove itself loudly because it is already rooted internally. Dramatic gestures often come from the ego. They seek validation, reaction, or control over how one is perceived. Jung warned that ego-driven actions can mask insecurity or fantasy rather than reflect authentic connection. Subtle actions, on the other hand, arise when emotion has settled into the personality. They are unforced. He does not calculate them. He simply acts in ways that maintain emotional proximity because the psyche has already decided what matters. Consistency also reflects emotional safety. When a man feels deeply, he does not want instability to threaten the connection. He avoids extremes. He becomes predictable in the best sense of the word. This predictability is not boredom, it is reliability. Love that is integrated into the psyche seeks continuity rather than chaos. He wants the connection to feel solid, not overwhelming. Subtle actions create trust because they reduce uncertainty. Another reason consistency matters is that the unconscious resists contradiction. If a man feels attached, his behavior will align with that attachment over time, even if his words hesitate. He may say he is unsure, yet his actions continue to show care, presence, and attention. Jung believed that when conscious attitudes conflict with unconscious truth, behavior eventually reveals the deeper reality. Words fluctuate, moods change, patterns remain. Subtle actions also require emotional investment. Remembering preferences, noticing emotional shifts, offering support during unremarkable moments, and maintaining contact without pressure all require sustained awareness. This awareness indicates that the other person occupies mental and emotional space. Love is not only passion, it is attention over time. Where attention goes consistently, emotional attachment already exists. Consistency becomes especially meaningful when no reward is guaranteed. A man who continues to show up quietly without immediate validation is acting from internal motivation rather than external reinforcement. This suggests that his behavior is guided by feeling, not strategy. Jung would describe this as the unconscious guiding action in alignment with inner truth rather than social performance. In contrast, inconsistency often signals internal conflict or shallow attraction. Intense moments followed by absence usually reflect desire without integration. Love that has not yet settled into the psyche appears erratic because it is driven by impulse rather than commitment. When love deepens, behavior stabilizes. The nervous system calms. Actions become measured and dependable. Subtle consistency is easy to overlook because it lacks drama. It does not demand attention. Yet it is precisely this quiet persistence that reveals emotional depth. The unconscious does not seek applause, it seeks expression. When a man's small actions continue to align with care, presence, and emotional attunement over time, it indicates that love has already moved beyond feeling and into structure, shaping how he lives, chooses, and relates without needing to announce itself. When all of these patterns are seen together, a clearer truth emerges about how love actually reveals itself. Love is not always loud, immediate, or expressive in the ways people expect. It moves first through the unconscious, shaping behavior before it ever finds language. A man who is already in love may appear quiet, restrained, or even conflicted, yet beneath that surface his psyche is deeply engaged. His silence carries meaning, his withdrawal signals internal adjustment, and his restraint reflects respect for something that matters. What truly defines his feelings is not dramatic pursuit, but the steady alignment of his actions over time. Attention that does not fade, care that shows up in ordinary moments, and consistency that persists without demand are the clearest signs of emotional depth. These behaviors are not performances. They are expressions of an inner truth he may not yet fully understand or be ready to voice. When love is real, it reorganizes a man from the inside out. It challenges his ego, exposes vulnerability, and invites growth. Until that inner work settles, love often speaks through subtlety rather than declaration. Understanding this allows you to read behavior with clarity instead of fear, and to recognize that what is quiet, careful, and consistent often carries far more meaning than what is loud and rushed.